Let me first pay salutation to Buddha Shakyamuni, who taught the truth of Tibetan ordination, the Samudaya. And among all the great spiritual teachers of the world, one thing that really defines the Buddha as a unique teacher from the Buddhist point of view is his teaching on Tibetan ordination. And Tibetan ordination, the Samudaya, really captures the essence of Buddha's insight and Buddha's teaching. Now, when we look at the term itself, Tibetan ordination, and in Tibetan is Tenjo, which is composed of two syllables. One is dependent, and second ten. The second is Joma, which is origination. And these two syllables really capture a powerful insight into the understanding of the nature of reality. The first, the word dependent, really indicates the basic truth, how everything is dependent upon each other. Nothing is independent. And it is through this dependence which is the actual fundamental reality of everything. And then the second element, origination, points out how things come into being through this interrelatedness, through this dependence. So, on the one hand, when you think about the concept of teaching on dependence, nothing is left that exists independently. But then we cannot conclude by saying, therefore, nothing exists. That's why the second element is important, because even though there are nothing that is independent, but through dependent relationships, things can come into being. And it is the understanding of that truth of dependent origination that can really help us, dispel, ignorance and misunderstanding about the nature of reality. So, understanding dependent origination is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. And the characteristic of Buddha as a teacher of dependent origination is really important. So how does this, why is this understanding of dependent origination important? Because if we examine our day-to-day experience of being in the world, each of us will recognize that at the heart of our existence is a strong sense of self, I. And when you lack the insight into Tibetan origination, dangerous to us. So this aversion and attachment really arises on the basis of our perception of and grasping a sense of self. Therefore, along with the Buddha's teaching on Tibetan origination, the other important teaching is the teaching on compassion. And the importance of the compassion as the heart of Buddha's teaching can be recognized in Chandrakirti's text, Entering the Middle, where he compares, when he writes the salutation at the beginning of the text, unlike other texts and other masters, he chooses compassion to be the object of his salutation at the beginning. And when he pays homage to compassion, he compares compassion to the seed that is important at the beginning for spiritual growth. He compares it to the moisture in the middle that enables the seeds to grow. And he compares to the fruition, the result, as well. So pointing out the importance of compassion throughout all stages of spiritual development. So when you combine compassion and wisdom of Tibetan origination, then you have the heart of the Buddha's teaching. So as Buddhists, our task is to cultivate these two qualities, compassion and wisdom. And with respect to wisdom, as I spoke earlier, at the heart of which is the teaching of Tibetan origination, or in other words, the teaching on no self. The teaching on no self is important, and how do we cultivate this? We hear the 2nd century Buddhist master, Aryadeva, says the following. The root of cyclic existence is consciousness, and the objects are what consciousness experiences. When you gain insight into the no self, or no reality of the object, that's when we will, exterminate the seed that will give rise to existence. So in other words, many of the problems that we face that lead also to samsara existence really are rooted in the way in which we perceive reality. Although reality lacks independent existence or self-existence, we tend to believe in the appearance, and we follow after the appearances of things being real out there. And once through cultivation of wisdom, we begin to see the absence of such independent existence, then our tendency to grasp and our tendency to have attachment based on that grasping will be loosened. And in this way, wisdom will arise. So, as I said earlier, one of the sources of problem is our tendency to believe in the appearance that we experience, our tendency to project onto reality things which are actually not real, and tendency to project independent existence. So, as I said earlier, through cultivation of wisdom, at the heart of which is the teaching on shunyata, emptiness, one will also begin to recognize that our perception does not mirror reality, that we don't naively believe and run after the projection that we are experiencing through our perception. When we are able to do that, then this will free us from strong craving and grasping, and the craving is removed not simply because we wish it away, but by gaining insight into the nature of reality. So in this way, when you are able to remove craving, then the mind becomes pure. And that purity of the mind, that state, is nirvana. Nirvana is a state of mind. Therefore, earlier I said that what is required on the part of us as Buddhist practitioners is to really, pay attention to these dual processes. One is the process of deconstruction of our tendency to grasp, which is the practice of the wisdom, no self, emptiness, so that we free ourselves from grasping. The other is the active process of cultivation of qualities like compassion, such as I cited from Chandrakirti. So through this combination of cultivation of wisdom, through removing ignorance, and through this active cultivation of compassion, then there is a real possibility of attaining enlightenment as Buddha suggested. Therefore, it is important for us Buddhists, because otherwise, when we think about existence as characterized by suffering, if there is no way out from suffering, if there is no solution, then focus on suffering alone can be demoralizing. But the Buddha's message is ultimately a positive one. There is an end to suffering. There is a possibility of a freedom from suffering. And that is through gaining insight into the nature of reality and cultivating the qualities like compassion. And I can share with you that although I cannot claim to have deep experience myself, but I can share with you that as a result of reflecting deeply and practicing deeply over decades, it really feels once you begin to get a sense or taste, that there is a sense of freedom that comes within you. So there is a real possibility of a transformation. So the same author, Chandrakirti, also says that as you sharpen and develop your own qualities of the mind, and then the illumination of that, your own mind, will open up nature of reality, and through the skillful means of conventional truth, which is the method aspect of the path, then one will be able to travel to the shore of enlightenment. So, and the important part of that, which is a challenge, is to actually develop a shamatha, the ability to maintain your mind completely focused and settled for a long period of time. This is one area I still struggle myself, but still I feel that I'm able to make some progress in the direction that Chandrakirti is suggesting. So Chandrakirti also says in that same text, actually the next verse, he says that how when you are able to gain deep insight into the nature of reality through the wisdom of emptiness, in fact, compassion will naturally arise for the beings who are suffering in the world. So compassion for suffering beings is a byproduct of wisdom that is cultivated. And when one is able to cultivate wisdom of emptiness and compassion, then one is equipped with the two wings, like a powerful bird. And then with these two wings of compassion and wisdom, one will be able to cruise the space towards enlightenment. So I truly feel that this kind of teaching, imagery that Chakravarti is providing, gives us kind of an optimism and hope as a practitioner. I'm in my late 80s now, and I still practice. And my hope is to be able to at least reach the second stage of the marga, which is the path of preparation for the end of my life. So in my own Tibetan tradition, as you know, there is also the Vajrayana tantric practice, which involves meditation on deity. And in my case, deity visualization has been an important part of my practice, even from my childhood, a particular form of deity, Vajrayana. But, to be frank, even though I do these practices, the practice where I really feel the greatest impact in my own mind is the cultivation of wisdom, especially cultivation of bodhicitta, which is the aspiration to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, grounded in compassion. These are the two main practices that really seem to make a real impact in my life. So many of us who are gathered here are followers of the Buddha. We see ourselves as practitioners of Dharma. So the reason why I share some part of my own personal experience and practice is to really bring home the point that all of us, each one of us, if we take our Buddhist practice seriously through cultivation or through meditation, and the meditation really needs to combine both analytic meditation or deep inquiry into the nature of reality, understanding compassion, and also internalization of that through meditative practice. So this combination of both resting meditation and analytic, discerning meditation is really the way to go. And if you are able to do this, you can really see a real difference, even in your day-to-day life. Once you are able to cultivate a little bit of wisdom, you change the way you see the reality in your own existence. When you are able to cultivate compassion, then you really see the difference in your own day-to-day life. And those who are serious practitioners, if we dedicate more time to personal practice, we will also be able to have aspiration to attain higher levels of realization as well. So I urge all of you to make some effort. So, of course, as part of our own tradition in the monasteries, there are also rituals that are part of the tradition. The Tibetan tradition, rituals involve, beating drums and playing cymbals and all these kind of musical instruments. And of course, they are part of the tradition, but it is important for us to remember that is the ritual of these performance rituals. It's not the most important. Because if you focus too much on the rituals, the only thing that you get is all the noise these musical instruments create. Where we should really pay more attention and focus is the inner development, inner cultivation. And inner cultivation has to be done through, as I shared before, combination of this analytic and resting approach, resting the mind, focusing it, settling the mind, then applying it, and so that you can combine. And the focus of those two approaches has to be really cultivation of wisdom, some understanding of the nature of reality, and then cultivation of compassion, and particularly bodhicitta. And if we are able to do this, as I said earlier, in my case, they become, if you spend some time on inner cultivation through meditation, these teachings become real, they become fresh, they become alive. It is, and in fact, by making these teachings come to life in you, you really experience the fruits and the benefits of the Buddha's teachings. So, since many of us who are gathered here are practitioners, I really wanted to make this important point. So also, at the same time, urge all of you to put more effort into your own daily practice. So I can also share with you that by engaging in this kind of inner development, particularly focusing on wisdom and compassion, it really can help increase our courage as well. For example, in the case of dealing with the current struggle and situation in Tibet, if you think just only about it from a narrow angle, you can lose your hope. But if you look at this crisis, look at this current situation from the broader perspective of the courage that the cultivation of bodhicitta and compassion gives you, then you can have a much more resilient mind. So even in your own life, day-to-day life, there might be problems which may seem enormous and unbearable. But if you have the courage that bodhicitta and these practices can give you, you will be in a much stronger position to actually turn adversities and difficulties, not be overwhelmed by them, but actually transform them creatively into opportunities as sort of further assistance on your own path. So this courage coming from the practice is a powerful tool for transforming, dealing with adversities and transforming adversities into opportunities. So in my own case, I was a young child born in the remote part of Tibet, the northeastern part of Tibet, and brought to central Tibet. And ever since, I had the opportunity to be schooled in the study of the Buddhist texts. And many of these Buddhist texts are treatises written by great Indian masters, and which really present these teachings on wisdom and compassion. And I have personally found them to be deeply impactful while in Tibet, and especially ever since coming into exile. I have familiarized myself with these texts, contemplated the content of these teachings, and I personally find them to be a powerful source, not just for personal practice, but also mental resilience, to give me courage. And I think this is really important to keep in mind. Today we have a large gathering of representatives from various Buddhist countries. This is an international gathering. Of course, Buddhism is one among many religions on this planet. Yes, all great major traditions of the world carry a message that is same, love, compassion, and so on. But I would say that what makes Buddhist, the Buddha Dharma unique is the richness of the resources that are found in the tradition really for inner development, particularly through the combination of what I call analytic, approach and more concentrated, restful meditation practice. The meditation practice is very rich, aimed at transforming our own mind. So that, I think, is an important feature of Buddha Dharma, and if we recognize this and then we embody in our daily life, then the fruits of that embodiment will be obvious to everybody, not just the Buddhists, but there are many different faith traditions in this world. There are also many people who do not subscribe to any particular tradition. But for all of them, if we as Buddhists can illustrate through our own life the benefit and value of Buddha Dharma, I would say this would be a service to the Buddha Dharma. This would be a way of saying thank you, expressing our gratitude to our teacher, Buddha. So this is something that I wanted to share with you. So, and I had a very early breakfast, so it seems to be getting closer to the time when I'm getting hungry. Thank you all.